Hello girls and squirrels, welcome back to my channel. So today I thought I would sit down and do a little mental health update. I haven't done one of these in probably about 6 months, I think. It's been a minute. So a lot has changed in the past couple months, and I thought I would just sit down in my cozy little corner of my living room and just kind of chat with you guys. I know these videos aren't for everyone, so if this isn't your type of video, I will see you in the next one. But for those of you who will be staying, I am so grateful that you're here, and I'm so glad that we have built this community with each other that really centers around living to our best potential and really focusing on our mental health when we need to. So I guess let's start with a little update. So as you guys know, I don't even know what year it is. I think it was the end of 2021 into 2022, I had started medication. I was put on antidepressants to help with not only my depression, but also my anxiety. I was having very severe panic attacks and just really needed something to help with that. What I was doing wasn't enough, and sometimes medication is definitely needed. I know there's a huge stigma around medication, but for me, now I am not a doctor. Definitely see your doctor and seek professional help. But for me and my experience, the medication really helped and served its purpose at the time. Now, I have been medication free for a few months now. I think the last dose I took was on Thanksgiving. So I have been off the medication for a couple months. It had gotten to around the year mark that I had been on medication, and it really started to have the opposite effect on me. Now again, I am not a medical professional. Speak with your doctor and come up with a plan that's right for you. But for me personally, the medication just no longer helping. If anything, it was making it worse. So I came off of the medication, and when I tell you, I felt awake again. Not that I hadn't before. I really spent that year really working on myself and really trying to find ways to deal with the anxiety on my own, because I really didn't want to depend on medication my entire life, and I really wanted to take control of my own mental health and not have to rely on an outside substance to make me okay, I guess. So my doctor did really help a lot with teaching me some skills to cope with the anxiety. It also helped me a lot just because my anxiety is very medical based. Like, I get very scared that I'm just gonna, and I guess you could call that hypochondria, but I don't know. I tend to fixate on it, and especially when I was having the really bad panic attacks, I was scared that it was like something physically was wrong with me, when in reality, it was just my anxiety. Now, that's just me personally. I will reiterate again, please go see a doctor. It can't hurt to get checked out. And in fact, in my case, it really helped to get checked out, get thoroughly checked. I had EKGs, I had chest x-rays, had my heart looked at, had everything, all the boxes checked to make sure that nothing was physically in that sense wrong, so that I could, focus on what really was wrong. And that was, for me, my stress, my anxiety, and the depression was manifesting itself into physical symptoms. So it actually really was very comforting to know that my heart is okay, I am in great physical health, and it really was just my mind that I needed to work on. I did ask you guys on Instagram if you had any questions about mental health or just any topics you wanted me to talk about, so I will be popping in a few of those questions here and there throughout the video. But one question that I did want to get to, or, talk about first before I get into what I've done to really like help myself and kind of teach myself some skills. This question or topic comes from Daniela, and she asked me to talk about just how difficult it is to get affordable and good therapy in the US. And she also put, if anyone has done online therapy like BetterHelp, what's their experience been? So the reason I wanted to bring that up is because I wanted to talk about therapy. As we all know, if you live in the US, therapy is very, very expensive. It's often not covered a whole lot by insurance, and especially for someone like me, I work for myself. That is the downside of working for yourself, is no health insurance. So I do not have health insurance. So the doctor that I was seeing, I've mentioned this before, was a pay by month doctor. It's called direct primary care. You can look up some of those facilities in your area, and that does give you a primary care doctor to see for one fee. It's one flat rate for the month, and then you have access to them whenever you need them. And that really was very helpful. Now, they are not a therapist, they are a primary care doctor, but it is helpful if you are looking to get a diagnosis for anxiety or depression, or to be prescribed medication, basically. When it comes to therapy, she had mentioned BetterHelp. I don't know about you guys, but I've heard nothing but horror stories about BetterHelp, and I have spoken to a couple friends who are in the therapy industry, and they have also warned me to stay away from BetterHelp. I'm sure there have been some success stories. I've looked into it though, and it's just not for me. It doesn't seem that it's affordable like they claim it to be, and also it just, like I said, I've heard a lot of horror stories about BetterHelp, so that's something I am staying away from. But as I said, I do have a couple of friends who work in the therapy industry and that type of medicine, and they mentioned to me that just like the primary care doctor that I was seeing, there are certain places that offer therapy in the same kind of way. You pay like $60 for a session, and you just pay by the session. So that could be a little bit more affordable. I would suggest, looking up something like that in your area. There are a lot of students that, are in their internship, or they're just doing, I don't know what it's called. I don't know the technical term for it, but they're in it's kind of like, not your internship. I watch way too much Grey's Anatomy to not know what this is called. Their fellowship, I don't know. They're starting out, and they're starting out their practice. I live pretty close to Augusta University, and there are plenty of students that are doing that. So it seems to be a lot more affordable when it comes to that. But it's definitely something you have to get creative about, and finding it is not easy. We do have a couple of state-run places here. I don't know if it's in every state. Those really, you just have to spend a lot of time to get into those. It's not necessarily the money. A lot of them are actually free, but it's like the DMV. You're going to be there for a while. So, there are options. You just have to do your research. I personally have not found anything specifically for me, but I am still on the lookout, and hopefully I can get, that within the next few months. So in the meantime, I have been basically just kind of researching and trying out things here and there to really try to help with me and to see what works for me. So one thing that I've been doing and implementing into my life is treating myself and my brain like I have ADHD. I don't know about you guys, but from the research that I've done and from the work that I've done to try and get diagnosed with ADHD as an adult, and especially an adult female, has been difficult. Very, very difficult. It's very expensive. It's a lot that you have to jump through so many hoops to get an official diagnosis of ADHD. So what I have done is really treating my brain and, acting in my day-to-day life as if I have ADHD. It can't hurt. If a method or a trick or a hack helps you, I don't see any harm in it. Again, not a physician. This is just what's helped me. It's really been super helpful to implement some of these tips and tricks into my life as if I have that diagnosis. Another thing that's really helped me is learning what my triggers are for anxiety, what triggers my panic attacks. So for example, if I'm starting to feel anxious or I start feeling like I'm gonna have a panic attack, I take a second and I think, okay, I check my surroundings. What around me is interfering with my mind right now? What is causing this fear? Because the anxiety is fight or flight instinct, and your body is registering something is after you. You are in trouble. The alarm bells are going off. Blah, 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 trouble, trouble, trouble. And sometimes it can be pretty hard to figure out what it is. For me, a lot of my anxiety was rooted in medical things. So I would have a little heart palpitation, which everybody has, I've learned. But I would be like, oh my gosh, this is it, and I would freak out. But now that I know there's nothing physically wrong with my heart is great. Everyone has heart palpitations now and again. You're fine. I can tell myself that, and I can reground myself and kind of calm myself down. Another thing that really triggers my anxiety is overstimulation, whether it be I get too hot. It's usually hot, not usually too cold. I kind of love being cold, but I'm either too hot or it's too loud, or certain sounds really just send me off. So I have implemented that into my daily life of, I carry around some earplugs, and if an environment that I'm in is too loud, I'll pop those in, and no, it doesn't cancel out the sound, but it really muffles the sound to a level that I can handle. And I just have those regular little orange earplugs. You can get them at Dollar Tree, super cheap. I know if you're on TikTok, you've seen the advertisements for the Loop earplugs. To me, regular earplugs work the same way. I could be wrong, but if anyone has experience with the Loop earplugs, were they helpful, or will just regular earplugs do? But if you're on a budget or you're broke like me, those $1.25 earplugs, definitely, they do the trick. Another thing that I've learned is to communicate with the people around me. I grew up thinking that I was just sensitive, and I didn't like yelling, or I didn't like loud noises. And I grew up thinking that it was just me, that I was just sensitive, and that I just needed to suck it up and, move on. Suck it up, buttercup, But I found that really explaining, things to people around you can't help you if you don't communicate with them. So for instance, when one of the sounds that really it sends me into a tizzy, it sends me into panic, is when you have to poke holes in your TV dinner. The cellophane is so thick. I don't know if anyone else can relate to this. It may just be me. But when you have to poke it with a fork, and it makes that really pop, 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 loud popping noise, that, especially if I'm taken off guard or I'm already kind of overwhelmed, that sound will just set me off. So I communicated that to my partner, and now every time Cody has to do that with a TV dinner, he says, babe, cover your ears. So I'm like, okay, awesome. And it's just so simple, which also goes to show that having good people around you who actually listen to you and care about, helping you with your anxiety or whatever. That is such a huge thing. Your environment and the people around you really affect your mental health. So that's definitely something that's key. Uno momento, the train is coming. Okay, I think it's done. So another thing I really wanted to talk about, something that's very personal to me, and I do want to preface this by saying that not everyone is the same. This is my personal journey and my experience, and I'm just sharing it with you guys. You guys may have different opinions on this, but this is how this certain thing affected me. So I want to talk about really being secure in your self-identity of who you are, really taking the time to find out who you are aside from anyone else, without anyone else's opinion. Just take that time, be by yourself, and really hone in on what makes you happy, what brings you joy, who you are, without outside opinion. And you may have just heard me call Cody he, which in the past he went by they. He is no longer going by they, he is going by he. And I also have in the past gone by the pronouns they, them. I am now going by she, her. So now that we've cleared that up, not that I, need to clear it up, but it is leading into what I'm about to, tell you guys. So I think for me, I had a really good talk with a couple of my friends on New Year's Eve about this situation. And for me, it was such, I don't know, how do I even talk about this? I'm trying, and again, I'm just trying not to, I'm trying to pick my language wisely, basically. So for me, when it came to pronouns or self-identity and all of that, I had come to the conclusion that I was non-binary, that I didn't really identify with female or male. It was just somewhere in the middle, and I still believe that gender is a construct. It's not just inherently female or inherently male, yada, yada, yada. That's for another video. For me personally, it was like I was jumping from the box of female to now another box that was non-binary. And there were steps in my journey where it really became almost as damaging as being put in that box by society when it comes to gender norms. It almost felt like I had to, if I looked like a certain way, if I looked too feminine on a certain day, then I wasn't non-binary enough, or I didn't look non-binary. Like I said, I just felt like I was being put in a box, but just a different box, So for me personally, and like I said, I'm not speaking for everyone who's non-binary. I'm not speaking for anyone else but myself. For me, it became almost damaging to focus on labels so much. I know for a lot of people, labels are comforting and it helps them identify who they are. And if that's you, great. I will call you they, them. I will call you she, her. I will call you he, him. I will call you whatever you would like to be called, and I respect that. That is valid. For me, I think labeling things really muddies up who I am, and it really just clouds my own self-identity, if that makes sense. I'm trying to, put this as gracefully as possible. Maybe you guys can relate. Let me know down in the comments below. Let's have a discussion about it, because I don't really think that it's something that's talked about a whole lot. I feel like people are probably a little scared to talk about it, but I think it is important, because I know I can't be the only one who feels this way. I know I'm not the only one who feels this way, because my partner feels the same way as well, and he had his own struggle. I'm not going to speak about that because that's not my story to tell. I noticed that for myself, putting myself in a box or putting a label on myself was causing more harm than good. So for me, this is just who I am. I'm not saying that I don't ever use they, them pronouns. People still use they, them pronouns for me, and that is completely fine. I think I'm just less focused on it at this point. It's not as important to me and my own self-identity that I be called they, them. So now that we've kind of talked about that, another thing that has really helped me is to just be extremely self-aware. You got to get real with yourself, you know? And it's not pretty most of the time. A lot of it is just you really digging down deep and taking a look at yourself and seeing what are things that I do. Like I personally am a very reactive person. A lot of times in the heat of the moment, especially with high emotions, I tend to react instead of, working through it and seeing where it's coming from. I am working on that. That is something that I actively have to work on every single day, especially with moments of feeling overwhelmed. Quickly for me turns into anger. So I have to be very self-aware of that, and I really have to take a look at myself and, and work on that. And that is something that has really helped me. Again, some therapy probably would be helpful, and we are working on that. But in the meantime, it can't hurt to, spend a little time in front of the mirror with yourself. I highly recommend that. I highly recommend sitting down and just writing out things. It doesn't even have to be pretty. Just like, how what was that? When you would do those writing exercises, and there's a word for it, and it has escaped me, but it's basically like a spider web, and just like one thought leads to another, and then like this is where this is coming from, and this is where this emotion is coming from, and like what in my past, can I think of where this started and things like that. So I definitely highly recommend sitting down and just kind of journaling, really, get into the headspace that is you. That's been super helpful. And speaking of journaling, so my best friend Justin, we recently had a talk about like planners and like journals and stuff, and he was telling me all about how he does his planning journal like for the week, and I told him that I really struggle with planners. I think we all do. I think it's just something that's like you do it for a couple months or just a couple weeks, and then you just don't look at it, and you can never stick with one. So I told him my frustrations with journaling or, doing a plan for the week. And I told him, like, I have this really big struggle with wanting to make it look perfect. And, I have this idea. I feel like most of us have in our heads, like, this idea of what a planner should look like and how it has to be all beautiful and perfect. And he was like, girl, no. He was like, just write down how it comes to you. And if it's messy, it's messy. He was like, your mind's messy. Life is messy. And it's okay for your planner or your journal to be messy. And you know what? I don't know. It's such a simple concept, but when he said that out loud to me, I was like, you're right. And he showed me like what he did. And so I'm going to share that with you guys and show you what I've been doing, and maybe it'll help you. So he goes by kind of like a template just to keep it a little bit organized, just so it's not like all over the place. Because I do, like him, I do need some structure. But I can't have too much structure because then it's too much pressure and then I won't want to do it. Does that make sense? So it's like a medium amount of pressure. A medium amount of organization is where I thrive. So this is what mine looks like right now. If you can see, I've just got my week right here. I don't include the weekends because the weekends are for me. The weekends are not to be planned. They are for spontaneity, they are for adventure, and I refuse to plan my weekends. So that's my little rebel side to this. But I've got the dates right here for the week, and I just write down, I do have it day to day. I may change that because if you're anything like me, you can plan the things for the day, but then the day doesn't go that way. Like, I can plan to photograph one day, like I can plan that at the beginning of the week for like Tuesday, and then Tuesday comes around and it's storm cloud city out there, you know? So I may change that, but for right now I do have this right here, and it just kind of gives me the structure. I'm not necessarily held to that. So that's another thing, is to like give yourself some grace. If you don't get those things done on that day, move it to the next day or move it to the next week. It is okay if you do not get all of those things done. This is just a guideline. That's another thing, is treating it like a guideline instead of a rule book. So that's really, really been helpful, and it's helped me stay on task. I do like a daily check-in, and I see, okay, what do I need to get done this week? What can I do today? I add things if I need to add them, just for the sake of marking it off, because that, I don't know about you guys, but that little, that action of marking something off a list is so rewarding and so gratifying. I love it. So I do add things that I didn't add. So if, I do something extra that day, I'll write it down on the list and I'll mark it out. And it feels so good. So give yourself that. I highly recommend giving yourself that. So then on the other page over here, I just have my goals and then reminders and notes. So in the goals, I just write down like a loosely based thing. Like, I have on here, upload 2 YouTube videos, get caught up on laundry, work out at least 3 days. Things like that. Just some overall goals for the week. And like I said, if you don't hit those goals, don't be hard on yourself. Next week, do it next week. Try to do it next week. Do your best. If you only work out 2 days instead of 3 days, that's a win. At least you worked out. And then under that, I've got reminders, and that's for like bigger things, like, if I need to cancel a subscription or I need to call my doctor's office. These are for like important things. I need to, call my credit card company, something like that, something that I need to do. It's like time sensitive, basically. And then I've got notes underneath, that right there. And that is just an area that day to day I can write down stuff that I think of that I can either put in for the next week. So like the week before in my notes, I put redecorate bedroom fireplace, look for items at the thrift store for that. And then we need curtain rods for the bedroom. And then I can go in there later. I just quickly wrote it down. I can go in there later. At the end of the week, I look if I need to like put that on my thrift list in my phone, or I need to add that to the grocery list or the Walmart list. I can add that. So the notes are just whatever you want to do. You can draw pictures down there. I don't care. But yeah, it's just an easier way of doing things, in my opinion. And in the great words of Justin, your mind is a mess, so your journal can be a mess. So I thought that was pretty wise, and so far it has been really working, and I haven't ever stuck to a planner this long. So that says something. My mind is usually all over the place, and I just can't do it. I can't do it, but this has been really helpful. And like I said, give yourself some grace. You're not perfect. You're not a machine. You are a person. And it's okay if you miss something on your to-do list. It'll always be there tomorrow, I promise. Well, it'll either be there or, we won't be here. So what does it really matter? Nothing matters, That's another thing I'm working on, is I have very dark humor, and I think dark humor has a place. When it turns into self-deprecating humor, I'm really trying not to self-deprecate. I'm really trying to talk kindly to myself and be nice to myself. I tend to tie my worth into my productivity and into my business. And if you're a small business owner, which a lot of you who watch me are, you know that the success of your business can really sneak in there and start tying itself into your self-worth, and we gotta stop that. In 2023, we're stopping that. We're not doing it anymore. I actually found this quote that I have made the background on my iPad so that when I'm working, I have to look at this and I am reminded of that. And the quote is, just because you're struggling doesn't mean you're failing. So that really has helped me. You know, I think I haven't made a sale in 4 days. I might as well hang it up. I just suck at business and I shouldn't even own a small business. So I should just stop, you know? And that's not true. Just because you're having a slow week doesn't mean that you're failing or that it's over. Give yourself a chance to regroup, recharge, and come back to it later. That's another thing I really wanted to talk about was coming back to things later. So as I had mentioned, you know, earlier in the video, I've been kind of just implementing some tips and tricks, some life hacks, treating myself as if I have ADHD, and it has really, really helped me in my day-to-day life. I have a really hard time staying focused. My mind is always going 9,000 miles a minute. I struggle with insomnia because of that. And I have found a few things that have helped. So I'll share that with you now. One thing that has really helped me in getting my tasks done throughout the day is bouncing from task to task. So I am not the type of person who can do and focus on one task and see it to completion from beginning to end in one take. Because in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking about something else. And I used to get so frustrated with myself, and to the point where I was like, you know, if I don't finish this task, like I go to wash the dishes and I put all my focus into the dishes and I get them completely done. If I don't do that, then I failed and there's no point in me trying to do these dishes, you know? So again, you're not failing just because you're struggling, you're not failing. So what I do now is if I'll wash the dishes, I get to a point where I'm like, okay, my feet are starting to hurt, my back's starting to hurt. I'm going to move on to something else and I'll come back to these. Or, you know, a thought pops in my head like, oh, I need to go put a load of laundry in. Or, oh, hey, the sun came out. Let me take advantage of this and go photograph. So I'll step away from the dishes and I'll go photograph. A lot of this too is just work-life balance as well. If you work at home, that can be very difficult because I can be in the middle of my workday and I'm like, oh, I'm looking at the dishes or the laundry or cleaning or whatever needs to be done, and I'll like stop and do that. But the thing is I've started giving myself grace and letting myself do that. If I need to step away, like I said, from the dishes and the sun has come out and I can get some photographs in, I go do photographs and then I come back to the dishes, or I'll do something else. And yes, I do have multiple projects going at one time, but that is how my brain works. And that is how I get stuff done. So I guess what I'm trying to say is there's no set way of doing things. Do what works for you. I've always said that since day one, but I'm just now starting to like process it in my own brain. If bouncing from task to task helps you get those tasks done, then do it. There's no rule book for this. It's just life. You just do what you gotta do to get it done, you know? Another thing I'm really working on is self-discipline and knowing like my body and where my body thrives the most. So I am the type of person, like I said, I can't be too organized and I can't be like no organization, you know what I mean? So I can't have everything too scheduled, but I can't not have a schedule at all. I have to be somewhere in the middle. So really working, you know, in that sort of way has really helped me. For instance, when it comes to sleep, like I mentioned, I suffer a lot from insomnia because I just cannot shut my brain off. I am just constantly thinking and thinking and thinking. And I don't know, I just can't shut it down sometimes. So but I also know that I do a lot better on a set sleep schedule. If I go to bed around like 10 o'clock and I wake up at like 7, 8 o'clock, that is when I thrive. So I have to force myself to do that. Sometimes you just got to put your big girl pants on and you got to do it, because I know that when I get off of that sleep schedule, that is when my anxiety and my mental health really just takes a right off a cliff. So things that I've started implementing, I'm not allowed to go on Pinterest whilst in bed because I will stay up all freaking night. I'm not allowed to go on TikTok in the bed because I will stay up all night. So basically, the one thing I'm allowed to do, I do put a show on, but it has to be one that I'm not like super interested in. It has to be something that I've already seen. It's just for the background noise, Mine is like New Girl or like Superstore or something, Friends, something that I've seen a billion times. I'm not interested in the plot. It is simply there for noise, because I do love a background noise. I cannot fall asleep in dead silence because my brain will fill it, So another thing I do is I listen to a podcast, put that on, and that really helps. A really long time ago, I heard this thing that if you close your eyes and you stay still for 6 minutes, you will fall asleep. And I have to tell myself and remind myself of that almost nightly, that if I just lay here for 6 minutes, it's just 6 minutes. It's not that long. I know it sounds like a long time. Most of the time I fall asleep before the 6 minutes, but just close my eyes and sit still or lay still for 6 minutes. Works like a charm. I don't know why, but it helps. So, and that's not to say that I do that every night, because I still stay up until 3 or 4 in the morning and I screw up my sleep schedule once again and I have to get back on track. But again, give yourself the grace. You're gonna mess up. You're human. You're not a machine. You're not a robot. You can't just switch it off sometimes. But having those little things that help you get through life, super helpful. Relying on community, doing your research, listening to people who share the same experience and listening to things that work for them, and maybe, trying it in your own life. And it may not work for you, but you also will find along the way a lot of things that do work for you, and you will then create a plan and a way of life that suits you best. All right, so I think I've rambled on enough, but I do want to end this video with another question or topic from Instagram, and this one comes from Sugar Magnolia Thrift, and she says, how do you stay optimistic when the hits just keep coming? For me, it's just little stuff. And I don't know that I succeed at it all the time. I do still have days where I just sit in the bed and I'm like, woe is me, things will never get better. But then I did realize that, like, even if I'm just laying in the bed worrying about it, I'm still worrying about it. So I might as well get up and do something. It doesn't necessarily have to be what, contributing to like whatever's getting you down. So for me, here's an example. This month has not been great with sales. I'm sure a lot of you guys are feeling that. For some reason, January is just the slowest of months. And instead of getting down about it and just beating myself up every single day about not making sales, yes, I am still listing, still doing my things that I need to do. But I'm trying to refocus my attention to something else. And I really struggle with control and having to be in control of things all the time. And that is one thing that's really helped me, is instead of focusing on things that I can't control, like sales, for the most part, it's not in your hands. There's just slow months. That's just how the market is. Can't control it. Instead, I will focus on things that I can control. So, in the past few weeks, I have really been honed in on redecorating our apartment, getting things reorganized, moving some things around so that they're more efficient and they work better for us. And, you know, just focusing on my environment and things that I can change, focusing on taking some time for myself. After the holidays, I really needed that recharge because I was just go, 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 go. I was seeing friends and family all the time, and I really just needed that time for myself to recharge. So that's my biggest piece of advice is, yes, the hits keep coming. The years start coming and they don't stop coming. They're not gonna. Unfortunately, life is hard. But taking that time, stepping back and realizing that some things you just can't control, and refocusing your attention to things you can control. And then I swear it's like magic. Once you start focusing on the things that you can control and you stop focusing so much on the things you can't, the things that you can't control work themselves out. It's like magic. And then you didn't have to worry about it. And yes, I know, especially when it comes financially, especially when it comes to things like money, that is the most stressful, and you're not going to not worry about it. But you can do the things, you know, that you can control. So that's my piece of advice. Also, just surround yourself with good people. Cry if you need to cry. Sometimes the best medicine is just bawling your eyes out for 30 minutes, you know? It's so good, so cleansing. And really, it releases so much stress and anxiety. Like, sometimes I don't even realize how anxious or stressed I was until I get done crying, and I'm like, wow, it just washed it all away. So good. Recommended. Highly recommend a good cry. Alrighty, so I think I've done enough talking. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you stuck around to the end, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for being a part of my community. You guys bring so much joy and so much love into my life, and I wouldn't be the person I am today without you guys. So thank you for being here. Let me know down in the comments your tips and tricks, things that have helped you, words of encouragement, whatever you want to leave down below. Start a discussion, you know, do your thing. Let me know some things. Tell me what's going on in your life. Again, thank you guys so much for being here, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.